Hi, I'm Rick Wenner, and you're listening to the Podlemania Photography and Video Podcast with hosts Wayne Johns and Jake Hicks, two very, very top blokes.
Welcome to Podlemania Podcast, your photography and video podcast, where we introduce you to some of the most amazing creatives from around the world. I'm your host, Wayne Johns, and I'm here with not Jake Hicks, guys. Not Jake Hicks. Again, he's not here for another show. I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking he's slacking. He's slacking. And he is slacking. Yeah, he's not pulling his weight at all at the moment. But no, in all seriousness, Jake's off because he's had his COVID jab, his vaccination, and he's had a bit of a reaction to it, like I did on my first one, and he feels like absolute crap. So it'd be a bit unfair to bring him into the show today and have him in front of our cameras for sure, whilst wrapped up in about 3 duvets, shivering his ass off. So another solo one today, but it'll be definitely be made up for with our lovely, lovely guest. But before we get into that, it's a perfect opportunity to let you all know where we are, where you can find us and how you can support the show. You can find us on all good podcast players, about 35 of them, in fact, around the world. And we go out in over 36 countries. And if you want to help support the show and help keep the lights on here at Podlemania Towers, then you can pop over to podlemania.com/donate page, where you can donate $1 or £1 or more if you're feeling generous, if you like the show that much. There's 2 links there. One of us is buy us a coffee and the other one is a PayPal link. So if you're feeling generous, we really appreciate it to keep the show running and for us to bring you all these lovely guests. Now, back to the fun stuff. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a dive into the editorial and advertising world of photography, but more so concentrating on portrait photography, but not just your normal run-of-the-mill kind of portrait shots. We're going to be talking about how do you connect with a person to get the ultimate shot is one of the many topics we're going to cover today. So welcome to episode 50, folks. And today we're talking with Long Island, New York-based photographer and director, Rick Wenner, a man who's translated inspirational messages and intriguing individuals into emotionally powerful portraiture. Rick likes to invoke a little humility and wit into his shoots, which has made him realize that great portraits are born when casual conversations paint the true colors of a momentarily guarded strangers. In the professional realm, Rick devotes much of his artistic energy towards editorial, corporate, and advertising projects. And his personal work is propelled by people that inspire and simply chronicling the characteristics that distinguish a person from average to unique. Rick appreciates some of life's little treasures, like a nice hazy IPA or a good bourbon. And he still has a thing for cool hot rods and low riders. Well, this episode is where we get down and low with the man himself. Rick, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm very happy to be here. I appreciate it.
It's been a journey, this one, hasn't it, Rick?
Indeed.
For us a little bit.
Yeah, here we are, round 2.
Round 2, here we are. And today, it's looking good, my friend. It's looking good. So, Rick, are you ready for this? I'm excited about it. I don't know about you, but I know it's round 2, but I'm still just as excited as before.
Absolutely, man. This is going to be fun.
Cool. So, Rick, before we get into the main questions, the same questions we give all our guests is, for our audience, how would you describe yourself and what you do?
So, as you mentioned, I'm a portrait photographer. I'm in New York, Long Island to be specific. And my work focuses on, I guess you would say, the human experience and how I like to find emotion. I like to find in-between moments and create a unique piece of art. And then who I am, I'm just a guy. I'm a guy with a camera.
A guy with a camera. That's modest.
Yeah,
a guy with a camera.
Yeah, my friends listening are already laughing at me. They already know I'm full of shit.
Is that their first thought?
Usually.
A guy with a camera.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm a husband. I'm a father of a beautiful 2-year-old. Her name's Nora. She's completely taken over my life, and in the best way possible. I love art. I love cars. I love beer. I love a good bourbon.
Nice.
I'm a simple man.
And if it wasn't so early, I think we'd be sharing a bourbon over this video chat right now, wouldn't we? So, or early for you, but not for me.
Absolutely. I'll send one to you. I'll have Glenn bring one over to you.
that will go down smoothly and quickly. I tell you that much. Okay, well that's a very humble little intro about yourself. I got to say that much. But let's dive a bit deeper into you and your life, then your career. So let's just briefly talk about your background first, because you had a background as an art director originally.
Yeah. So I started. I've always been an artist my entire life. Ever since I was probably 4 or 5 years old, I've been drawing and painting, sculpting. Like I said, my entire life. Didn't really realize how much I loved photography up until probably like 20 years ago. But I was working as an art director at the time. Went to school for a short period of time for graphic design.
Okay.
And I started working as an art director for my family's bread manufacturing business here on Long Island.
Okay.
I was creating different advertisements, packaging design, logos, presentations, you name it. Yeah. And I eventually started taking pictures of, like textures and landscapes and product for all the different design work that I was doing. Uh-huh. And that's what kind of like reignited my love and interest in photography. But it definitely wasn't shooting macro of wood grain or stone or anything like that. Nothing against that. It's just not what I fell in love with,
Yeah, sure.
And so I started exploring a bit more. I would go out on long drives around Long Island and try to find more interesting things that interested me. I was shooting some street photography of just like what's going on in my local town, some of the people, like things that were going on. And I enjoyed it, but still wasn't quite doing it for me. So I started to expand it even more. And I tried fashion photography, which is definitely not my thing. I wear black t-shirts like from Vans and Social Distortion t-shirts and that are like 20 years old. It's just not my world. So I dove out real quick.
Okay.
And then I dabbled with music for a little while, shooting live shows, going to concerts and getting in the pit there. And that was fun. But I just, again, this was all just a learning curve and trying to figure out what I was really meant to do with a camera. And eventually, after a few years, I got some friends in front of my camera. And I just wanted to do something very simple, straightforward, very basic, I guess you can say. And just shot portraits of 2 of my friends and fell in love with it. And it was because I was connecting with them. I'm a very social person. I love going to events and just meeting new people all the time and learning about people and kind of picking at their brain every so often. And this was it. This was the right path for me to pursue. And that was the very beginning of it all.
What a transition from where you were to where you are. It's quite a nice journey as well. It's just going through the various paths before you found your niche.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought that I realize now how important that was. You really got to spend time, especially in this craft, to really figure out what your strength is and where your love falls in photography.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because like we've experienced in the past, is sometimes what people love is not necessarily always commercially viable in today's world where things are a lot harder, especially in the photography world, to make a living. So
Yeah.
Definitely dip your toe in that water to see which one your passion,
Yeah.
that's that word we use a lot, comes out, but also can you make it a business if you want it to be a business, I think. But definitely.
I think the passion has to be there first and foremost. Like, you have to really, as far as my experience and a lot of my friends in this business, what we've all experienced is the passion absolutely has to be there, because it's not an easy road. You know, it's a hustle. It's a nonstop hustle. And I'm about 14 years into my freelance career full time. And I'm still busting my ass every day. I'm still hustling as hard as I can. And I love it. There's nothing I wouldn't change a single thing about it.
And that's the way it is, you know. That's the way being a freelance photographer is. You are busting your ass all the time.
Definitely.
100%. So about your work then, what would you say most of your work is made up from? I mean, are you a mix of editorial and advertising and portraiture, or did the two kind of cross over for you?
So I define my work as portraiture, editorial portrait, and advertising portrait. And all that means is I'm creating portraits for editorial clients and for advertising clients. That's really the only distinction there.
And that's your distinction. So for some of our listeners that may not be as experienced in the industry quite yet, that may be starting out, what's the difference in your mind, business-wise, of an editorial portrait and an advertising portrait?
Sure. So, I mean, in terms of style, there's no difference. As far as I'm concerned, for what I do, whether it be editorial for a magazine, which tend to be much lower budget, but there tends to be a lot more creative freedom in shooting editorial work. And then when advertising is concerned, you know, there's a lot more production involved. There's a lot more crew. There's a lot more art direction. You know, I'm still being given some kind of direction and inspiration and references based on my work and even other people's work to show what the client is looking for. But they still want your style on it. They want to know that this is a Rick Wenner photograph or a Wayne John photograph or whatever. You know, people... There's a reason why they're hiring you for it. And I think that's on both sides, to be honest, editorial and advertising. Yeah.
And the good thing obviously about the advertising is against an editorial is that it comes with a bigger budget.
Absolutely. Yeah. Usually there's a few more zeros at the end.
Yeah. We as freelance photographers, we love to hear the words advertising campaign, don't we?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's usually a bigger check associated with that.
Yeah, that's it. So about portraiture in general then for you, photographically, what is it you love so much about shooting portraiture, considering we sort of, you know, you found your channel through all the different areas that you've tried and tested, you've landed on portraiture. What is it you love so much about shooting the portraiture stuff?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's the social aspect and the psychological aspect of trying to bring out who somebody is in one still image, or if it's a series, you know, 3 or 4 or however many. I try to do it in 1, maybe 2.
Okay.
And it's that connection. It's that, like you mentioned in the opening, it's the conversation that I have, or I try to have, with my subjects, and me asking them a lot of different questions. Or, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into the process a little bit more. But, you know, I want to bring out who my subject is, or find something about them, like learn something new.
Are you saying you're finding something that you can relate to in conversation that, one, helps you break the ice, but also opens your subject up? Easy conversation gets them relaxed a bit more.
Yeah.
They can relate with you a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just about anybody who meets me, I would like to think that they'll see that I'm a very easygoing guy, and I'm not stressed on the outside, at least. I keep it hidden very well.
And in the inside, 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my brain's going 1,000 miles an hour all the time, but you won't ever see that come out of me, especially in a portrait session, because I want my subject to be very comfortable with me and to let their guard down as soon as possible. Most people, when the camera comes up, their wall goes up. Most people, in my experience, will feel some kind of tension or feel like they have to smile or fall into a very tight pose as the camera comes up. And that's not what I'm trying to find. And that's fine. If that happens at first, I'm totally okay with it, because let's get that out of the way. And once we've got that, and I can break down that wall through conversation and gently directing them, or just through conversation, like I said. Just to ease it up a bit. Yeah, I just want you to feel comfortable with me.
Yeah, and I suppose it's different as well, because, as we know, when you've got different people. You've got people that are used to being in front of a camera, whether it be a stills camera or motion, a moving image or movie camera or whatever. You've got actors and things that are used to being in front of cameras, and they can pretty much just ignore it and relax and be themselves. But sometimes, you've also then got the...
Not always, but sometimes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But then with celebrities, if you want to call them that, you've also sometimes then got a time restraint.
Yes.
And as we know, people that aren't used to being in front of the camera, it takes them a good 10 minutes or so to warm up, where, you're trying to break down these barriers, to open them up, and for them to be themselves. It takes a little bit of work for them to forget where they are and relax. How do you work that when you're working with actors and you're on a time constraint then? How do you quickly break down their barriers, knowing you've only got about 10 minutes to shoot them anyway, with no warm-up period?
Yeah, that's it's tricky. And I think it definitely comes with experience. Like you said, most of these celebrities who are only allotting 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. and there's no exaggeration. Some people, I know of someone who did a shoot with my buddy Drew Gurian. He did a shoot with Ed Sheeran. And I'm pretty sure he had about 27 seconds with him. And got a really nice shot of him. Absolutely. I mean, I'm a bit more fortunate in that I've had 6 minutes with Steve Martin. But, Steve has been in the business for, 6 minutes. He's been in front of the camera for the majority of his entire career.
Of course.
40 years career, something like that.
Yeah.
And so he's used to this. But the tricky part in answering your question, how do you get somebody comfortable with you that quickly or whatnot, is, most of these people will expect that the photographer is hired for a reason and their work will back it up. Like there's a reason why somebody is hired to photograph a major celebrity or a B-list celebrity or whatever. Yeah, the work has to be there. And that comes with experience, of course.
Of course.
But my approach with celebrity versus your quote-unquote regular people is all the same. I don't change anything up other than speed, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything's set up ahead of time. If I'm shooting somebody like Christopher Walken, I was at his house in Connecticut, and we had about 7 setups all ready to go. And we had him for an hour, which was amazing for somebody like him.
Yeah.
And to be at his house as well was incredible.
Even more.
But we still had a very tight schedule because, you can only get so much done in an hour. It sounds like a lot of time, but when you have 7 setups to do, it's really not.
It flies by.
Yeah. So, it's all in preparation, planning.
So really then, as a celebrity, regular person, you're just being you.
Absolutely.
Either way, you're just being you, which is your normal self, your normal personality, and they get to know who you are from the off.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think you can tell when somebody's being fake. We can all tell.
Yeah.
You can tell the salesman at the local TV store, he's just being nice because he wants to make his commission. It's kind of the same thing with photography. If you're that salesman type and you're being fake with high energy or low energy, and you're kind of like jumping out of your body, they're gonna know. And so, why put up that extra wall between you in trying to be something that you're not? Just be yourself, and I think most people will appreciate that, unless you suck. Unless you suck as a person.
Unless you suck, then just be someone completely different.
Then maybe you should consider something else.
And not only that, it is harder, isn't it? It's some celebrities are on really tight timescales and deadlines. And the thing is, you don't know whether they've just come out of a press meeting about a movie or about a TV program or a project. And you don't know until they get in front of you, or until they walk in a room, whether that press conference has pissed them off or they've come out happy.
Absolutely. And it's the same for anybody, really. It's the same for anybody.
Come out happy, it's pretty good. If they've come out pissed off, then you've got a lot more work to do in under 10 minutes.
Exactly. And I mean, I don't care if you're a celebrity or not. We all have lives. We're all human, right?
We're all human, yeah.
So, I mean, I hate using the words regular person, but that's the only way to kind of put in this context here, I guess. Somebody could come into your studio or to your shoot and they just had a fight with their husband, or something happened with a bad email or something, and it just totally ruined their mood. And that's not necessarily your problem. You have to be able to break that down and get past that. And some people, I find most people are able to forget it in the right environment, and some people aren't. And if that's who and how they are at that moment, then that's fine. That's what you get.
And talking about, some of the people you photographed, like Christopher Walken and Steve Martin, just to name a few. How did those opportunities come about for you? Because you've photographed some lovely people throughout. And I'm just going to refer to a lot of your portraits as people, whether they are classed as celebrities or not. But your Christopher Walken, Steve Martin, probably people we all know in the world. So two really good people to talk about. How did those opportunities come about for you?
So Christopher Walken, I photographed for the New York Observer, a newspaper that had more of a magazine style approach to their design and photography. That was one of the first shoots that they hired me for, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the first one was Wallace Shawn. And then, the first celebrity. I did a few other shoots for them beforehand with bartenders and authors and a bunch of other people. And I feel like that was really setting the groundwork to prove myself and prove the quality of what I'm able to do. And as that relationship was built up, one day I was at a local print house, local printer, working on a promo for my work. And I got an email from the director of photography at Observer. Her name was Emily Asserin, another great photographer in New York. So she emails me, and the only thing she wrote in the subject line was Walken. And then in the main email, she wrote, "You want it?" So I lost my mind. I lost my mind. Absolutely. What do you need? I'll do it, obviously.
Let me think about that one for a minute. I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
You're right.
And I mean, I was probably, I was probably like 6-7 years into my career at that time, which was amazing to get that kind of an opportunity. That was it. That was through email and through one promo card that I sent her in the mail, which is this. I mean, this is a very rare thing that I'm talking about here.
Nowadays,
Normally, you gotta send promo after promo after promo.
And do you still send promo cards out a lot?
I mean, I haven't in the last year and a half, just because, with the way the world is right now. But it looks like people are starting to go back into the office. I've seen a few Instagram posts and stories where some of the photo departments that I follow, they're showing photos in their offices, and one person even wrote on their stories, start sending promos again.
But But for people that don't know that's something we used to do all the time, was send out promo
Yes.
cards, to agencies and photo departments and everything else, and press departments for all these kind of things. And it's something you've got to keep doing and keep refreshing with new ones, not the same ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you want to show new work.
Yeah, and then send a relevant promo card to the relevant companies.
Super important.
Don't send it to the wrong company that doesn't do your kind of work.
Yeah, don't send a photo of a water droplet to Rolling Stone. It's probably not what they're looking for.
So I mean, getting to shoot those, I mean, that's beautiful, and the images, the Christopher Walken, Steve Martin shots are beautiful as well. I mean, beautiful light, and I love the black and whites you've shot of Christopher Walken.
Oh, thank you,
stunning,
thank you,
stunning. And in his house as well. How nice is that? Yeah.
We were like I said, we were up in his house in Connecticut, and we were actually shooting in his guest house, which was incredible. It was this log cabin looking home, very rustic feel to it. And everywhere you look in there was something interesting to use as our scene. I mean, my favorite portrait of him, it was shot on seamless that we just kind of stuffed in the corner with one light. And I mean, it was...
Jake will love that one light.
Yeah, I mean...
he's going to love that.
I still love using one light. Yeah,
me too.
The simplicity is incredible. And you can make it look like 5 with one light. Anyway...
See Jake's eyes rolling to the back of his head already.
Nah. Sorry, Jake. Should have been here, bud.
Yeah, that's right. See what you're missing out on.
But yeah, I mean, we set up seamless on one side of the house, and on the other side was this beautiful stone, large fireplace with a beautiful brown leather chair and his desk with beautiful furniture and wood panel walls and trinkets everywhere. It was a gorgeous spot.
Nice. And does he still wear his trousers high waisted?
Oh, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
It just happened in his life, didn't it? It was like the trousers were normal on the hips, and then all of a sudden they just became high waisted.
Maybe just
forever.
has high hips. I don't know.
Good way of putting it. Talking about one light, it's moving on quite nicely. For your commercial portraits, is your lighting setup kind of predetermined for you? I'm talking commercial wise here, say editorial portraits or advertising portraits. Is the lighting setup kind of predetermined for you, or do you still have full control? I mean, you've obviously got it all set up already, as we know, because you don't have time to be messing around when there's talents waiting. Yeah.
So I mean, it's all determined ahead of time in that the client will typically describe or show examples of the type of look that they want. And then that's for me or whoever the photographer is to figure out how to set that up and how to make it look the way that they want,
Yeah, get you.
So I mean, that's usually how that's figured out.
So you're almost getting, what we would call a bit of a mood board, but
exactly.
for lighting and direction.
Exactly.
And things.
Yeah, it's usually a PDF or attachments in an email just to show you the feel and maybe there's a composition that they need, like full length or negative space or whatever.
Yeah, for copy. Yeah. So it's for the people who may not be so experienced in that, you've got to look at these samples that are coming through and determine, what light modifiers you're going to use to kind of replicate some of that lighting for that feel.
Exactly.
I.e. hard light, soft light, big light, small light, whatever. Quick light fall off into rich blacks and contrast, or evenly lit and nice and soft. So definitely reverse engineer all of that. For you, with the majority of those, are you using what's your lighting setup for one of your average ones? Is it big soft light?
I've got a massive kit of so many different modifiers but it's all Profoto and Elinchrom. Mostly Elinchrom modifiers. I have Profoto B10 Plus lights.
Okay, little tiny ones.
I got those guys. I got the B1 X's. I used to use the Pro B2 lights, which were those like car battery size packs. With the separate flash head too. And just pushing those around all over New York was awful. Those things weigh so much. So I'm
how things have changed.
And now they're 3 pounds and the size of your palm. It's amazing. But yeah, I like to use ProPhoto a lot. They're very reliable and fast and easy to move. And but reliability is the most important part there for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the reason I mentioned the different modifiers is because I was experimenting a lot throughout my career. And I mean, I still do, but I love just a simple Photech soft lighter. A nice 60-inch soft lighter, throw that up, call it done. And and you can get so many different feels and looks in your light with just one umbrella. It's really fun to experiment with.
Yeah, I do a lot of one light demos in some of my workshops and things, and live demos that I do. And making, like we said earlier, making one light look like three lights by using reflectors. And I used a bathroom mirror in one of my things, to cast a window light in the back wall from the main light.
Yeah.
So
almost anything can be used as part of your lighting setup. I mean, right now I'm bouncing an RAT1 hot light into a gray wall just so you can see me a little bit better in our Zoom chat that we're having here. And I mean, it looks like garbage, but it works,
It works.
You guys who are listening don't really see how I look right now, which is kind of to my benefit. But yeah, the main thing is, I guess what I'm saying is that's what I like to go to is that soft lighter. I still love the Elinchrom 39-inch deep octa. That's by far one of my most favorite modifiers.
I know a lot of portrait people, even if they're using ProPhoto or whatever brand lighting they're using, they love the Elinchrom deep octa.
Yeah, I mean that's what's great about
favorite go-tos.
That's what's so great about these modifiers is there's adapters, so you don't have to have Elinchrom or ProPhoto. You can buy usually it could be any other brand, and there's some kind of an adapter out there.
To
put your modifier on there. But I also really enjoy the 27. I also really enjoy the 27-inch, which I've been playing with a little bit more too, without the front diffusion on, just the inner baffle, and it's got this beautiful, crispy but still somewhat soft kind of feel to it. It's beautiful.
You were saying about adapters and things. It's I mean, I don't know about over where you are in the US, but over here in the UK, if you buy a ProPhoto modifier, you don't get the adapter with it. You have to buy that extra.
Oh yeah.
Even to fit a ProPhoto light, you have to buy it extra, which I find the bizarrest thing in the world. You have to buy the adapter to fit your own ProPhoto light.
For you.
ProPhoto, sort it out. Stop ripping people off.
I love you, ProPhoto.
You're expensive. You're expensive enough as it is. Way overpriced. Anyway, we won't get into that. Okay, well, that's interesting. For your portraits, we're getting irrespective of what lighting brand you're using. But I like we say, I think the important thing is your modifiers. What modifiers you're loving to give you that, like you say, the 27 with no front diffuser and just the inner baffle to give you a soft, creamy middle with a crisp edge is nice. And a lot of people may not have that experience. They may think they have to use them all, or might not see those differences with their eyes.
Yeah, it all comes, like I said, with experience and time. It takes a long time to figure out what light is doing what and what modifier is doing what, and to figure out what you like. And then build on that lighting style or whatever it is to figure out your style. And that's really important, especially in such an oversaturated market of photographers. To find your style is really, really important, because if let's just say we're doing a very soft light, even light, no contrast, no deep blacks, no nothing. How many people are doing that type of shot? There's got to be a real reason why somebody's going to call you specifically for that look, at least in the higher end. I mean, if we're talking about slightly lower budgets, then it may not make as much of a difference, which is fine. You're still able to create and you're still able to do your thing. But when you're coming up into editorial and advertising, you're being hired for a very specific thing. Yeah. Because there's so many of us that can do such a wide variety of looks,
Yeah. And I think it's all right. I mean, there's a lot of people that go, Yeah, I've had someone look at one of my images before and they didn't know I was standing there, but I heard them go, I could have shot that. A lot of people could have shot that, but only if you had the idea first.
Right.
Anybody can copy anybody, but it was my idea and my conception in the first place that presented that shot like that. Of course, anybody can pretty much shoot it, but it's the idea that came first and then the product came after. So
yeah, and
have the ideas and play with the line.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're all guilty of having that type of a thought where we look at something that, let's say, Annie Leibovitz has shot, and you could be like, oh yeah, I could do that. Can you really?
Yeah,
can you really do that? I mean, not Annie's works specifically, but can you really look at any shot and say, I could definitely do that? Let's say it's a photo of, there's an amazing portrait photographer, Platon, who shot Ozzy Osbourne and got a beautiful portrait of him crying. This is actually the portrait that inspired me and pushed me that much harder to pursue portraiture back like 10 years ago, 11 years ago, maybe, whatever it is. I don't know, I'm losing track of time. I'm old. Platon was talking in this seminar about how he was in this portrait session with Ozzy, and they started talking about what's her name, Sharon, right? Sharon Osbourne.
Sharon, yeah.
And Ozzy just got so emotional about it, and he started crying because of it. He loves her so much, and that's the shot that just resonated with me and obviously so many other people. But that connection and that vulnerability and openness that Ozzy was able to give Platon all he needed was that 5 seconds to get that.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of massaging and a lot of conversation just to get him to that point. And so, can you look at a picture of Ozzy and say, "Oh, I could do that"?
Yeah. There's a big journey gone on there, but that's not technical and gear related, isn't there? So,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, Rick, I think that's a perfect round off to hit the mid segue point where we hit an extra fun bit of the show. Called the rapid fire, not so rapid fire round.
Oh, great.
And for those of you that may be new to the podcast that don't know what this is where I politely bombard Rick with 10 very random questions that could be related to photography, or they may not be related to photography at all. So you could end up learning something, or you could end up learning absolutely naff all. So
I'm going with nothing.
Going with nothing.
Total waste of your time. Sorry for listening.
Are you ready for these, Rick?
Yes, let's do it.
10 questions. Okay, let's get into it. What's the worst thing that's happened during a portrait shoot?
Oh, God. We set up a 20 by 20 silk overhead with a bunch of Elinchrom 74-inch indirect octas on the baseball field of the New York Mets. The wind picked up and blew everything over because I'm not going to name the assistant, but somebody didn't sandbag it properly.
Oh, no.
And my lights went flying. And then shortly after that, my camera stopped working.
No.
Which really sucked because it was day 2 of this photo shoot. And the entire day 1 was all shot on the phase 1. And then the camera stopped working and I had to shoot it on a DSLR. But if you look at the image, hopefully you can't tell.
Holy crap, man. Nobody injured, I take it?
Nobody injured except my ego.
Your ego. Ego in your pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Thank you for insurance.
Yeah. I think all of us photographers that have assistants have had an assistant error somewhere along the way where equipment has gone over and got broken.
Yeah.
I know I have.
Yeah, you just kind of hope it doesn't happen on a shoot like that. And it did.
I mean, shit, man. I mean, that's the 20 by 20 scrim on the head. I mean, that's big.
That's a giant frame in silk.
Yeah,
that wasn't fun.
That's not what we call lightweight, is it? Especially when you got so many lights above that as well, shooting down through.
No, that was crazy.
Holy crap.
But thanks for the reminder.
Silver lining to that cloud. Nobody got injured.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me about that.
Okay, question 2. An IPA or a bourbon?
IPA.
Oh, straight in there. Down the IPA route. Have you ever photographed a celebrity and called them by the wrong name?
No, I don't think so.
Pure professional.
I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with no.
No, I like the confidence with a bit of doubt.
Yeah, the big question mark at the end of no.
No, I've just read this question that I wrote where it's coming out. It's for anyone listening, it's no way in relation to Rick's character.
Oh,
okay,
shit.
These questions are random. Have you ever turned up for a shoot hungover?
Probably. Way early in my career. Not over the past 12, 13 years, but my 20s were fun. We'll put it that way.
I know you're not alone in that answer.
No, of course not.
I remember doing a live show once, and I was first on stage in the morning at a photography show over here in the UK. This was many years ago. And the night before, we'd been heavy in the hotel on the alcohol, celebrating a couple of things, and we ended up doing a lot of shots. And literally, the coffee table in front of us had about 5 rows of shot glasses end to end.
Nice.
And we were absolutely wasted.
Mm-hmm.
And first on stage in the morning, talking to about 500 people was a challenge.
Oh my God, I can't imagine. No, I like the transition from IPA or bourbon to have you ever been hungover on a shoot? It's slick. I like that.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional, by the way.
Okay.
But we remained professional and we smashed it out of the bag.
Absolutely.
So that was cool. Describe your worst nightmare on a shoot.
The worst nightmare on a shoot happened at that photo shoot I just described.
Oh, that was
cameras breaking and lights toppling over. And
that's the worst one that's happened. But is there anything else that
worse?
would? Yeah, is there anything else that hasn't happened but would be a nightmare for you? Your worst nightmare that you would never want to happen?
Probably absolutely zero connection, period, with a subject where I'm not able to get one shot out of them. One shot that's strong enough for my client or for myself. Obviously, the client comes first. But yeah, that's probably it.
That's almost like a tumbleweed moment, isn't it? When you come away with something you're not happy with.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, that'd be scary.
Almost gives me shivers. Yeah, that'd be bad. Okay, pancakes or bacon and eggs?
Ooh, bacon and eggs.
Good man. One lens, what's it going to be?
55 on my 55 Schneider, which is a medium format lens.
And for those that may not understand the conversion ratio, if you're talking full frame or 35mm full frame,
yeah, I think
your
that's
55mm is going to be what, about a 40?
Yeah, roughly 40-ish, 40, 45, probably on a DSLR, 35mm, somewhere around there. That's been my go-to lens over the past few years. I've really been enjoying that just to show a little bit more environment. I don't love it for close-ups, which I love to shoot as well. If I'm shooting a close-up, I'll use my 80mm, which is closer to, I guess, like a 70-ish or a 60-ish. I don't know the conversions very well. But pretty much all the close-ups on my website were shot with that 80mm Schneider.
And close-ups, you're saying what, half-body shot or closer?
Probably half length and closer to like just the head.
And your 55, you're shooting that for what, like a 3/4 portrait?
I'll do that.
And wider or further?
I'll usually use that when full length in the studio, like on a cyc wall or on seamless, or even, and definitely for environmental portraits where I'm showing more of the scene, more of their location.
Favorite celebrity shoot to date?
Favorite celebrity shoot?
I know it's hard to put into context if you've had so many good ones. And that might not just be because of the final image. That might just be the experience or the person.
Yeah. I think, I really enjoyed my shoot with Kobe Smulders, who, if you've seen the show How I Met Your Mother or you watch any of the Marvel Avenger movies, she plays Maria Hill in there. And she was amazing. Like, if you've seen the show How I Met Your Mother, her character is very similar personality as Robin Scherbatsky on the show. Just very outgoing and fun and great personality. And we just had a blast on our shoot. We were in a restaurant in Manhattan, and she was just nonstop fun from start to finish. I enjoyed that one. I got this whole wall in front of me that I keep on looking at of photos of myself and select people that I've had the pleasure of photographing over the years. And yeah, Kobe was a lot of fun. There's a picture of her laying her head on my shoulder and me just happy as hell.
Oh, it's awesome when you get people out to photograph, and it's a whole bundle of fun.
Yeah,
the best ones, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so that's your favorite one. Now, one celebrity you would like to photograph.
One celebrity I'd like to photograph. And the list is so long.
If you could shoot one tomorrow and they're going to walk through your door, who would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I'll always land on Robert De Niro.
Okay,
or
cool.
Al Pacino. I love those guys. I think they have they have such great looks, but they have an amazing career and background and all of that. There's a lot more people, but this is what happens when I do a rapid fire question thing. I don't have enough time to think about it.
You can, hence the title of the round now. Yep. Rapid fire, not so rapid fire round. Okay, no, they're cool characters. Okay, final question. Question number 10. We had this one in the last episode, but it was so random, I thought I'd keep it in this one. You're camping in the woods and a curious bear comes past. You've only got a wooden spoon. What do you do?
You throw the spoon at it and run. I don't know. I don't camp.
Our last guest, he was just like, he's like, I don't know. What do you do with a wooden spoon and a bear? He goes, take a jar of honey and feed it. I don't know. It's like,
you got Yogi Bear in front of you?
Yogi Bear.
Take one last scoop of your food and prepare to die, I guess.
I did say you might learn something or nothing, folks. And Rick, well, you'll be glad to know that's the end of your rapid fire, not so rapid fire round. You have smashed your 10 questions, my friend, with some damn good answers in there as well.
Oh, thanks.
So I like that. And the bear one gets everyone. So okay,
that's a really funny question.
Okay, folks. Well, let's get into part 2 of this one now. Let's dive back into some serious stuff. And in part 2, I kind of want to get into some of your personal projects, if we can,
sure, rather
than your commercial work per se. Now, can we just chat about? I think breaking into this, one of your biggest productions to date, your pharma campaign for the metastatic breast cancer patients.
Yeah, that was a very heavy emotional project to work on that I was so honored and privileged to be part of and be asked to create these portraits. Yeah, I shot that in January or February of 2020, so just before COVID made its way over here. We're in Pennsylvania, and the production rented out a beautiful house out there because we were shooting video and stills on the same shoot. So video was in the main house. I set up a studio in the pool house because luckily there was enough room there. It was a very large house. And it was, as you said, it was all real patients of metastatic breast cancer. I photographed 9 real patients over 4 days or 3 days. I think 3. Yeah, I mean, I'm not permitted to share the work, unfortunately, just because that's part of the contract where they got a full buyout, and I'm just not permitted to share it.
Yeah.
But you can get a pretty good sense of what's happening in that. The portraits were created just like all my other work, through conversation, asking very, very tough and real questions about what are they dealing with, how do they feel about it, asking about their family. I was very fortunate in that I had a partner in this project who is basically the middle person between the photo production and video production and the patients. I guess she was a therapist, was with the oncology center that these portraits were being created for. So there was that extra element of comfort, especially for such subject matter that we were working with. It's a really tough subject to work with. So with her sitting next to me, and it was only the 3 of us in this space that we kind of blocked off with V-flats to kind of create our own little room within this pool house. And just for intimacy and no distractions for the patient or ourselves, really. I was basically kind of documenting the conversation and finding those moments of real of real emotion, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And the project was to create a portrait of hope, a portrait of depression, and a
Okay.
portrait of anxiety, which
Wow.
all came out. I mean, I don't want to say it was easy to get these shots because of the conversations that we had to have in order to bring out these real moments.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Nine of these sessions, each one was about an hour to an hour and a half, with each person in front of my camera at least. And then they were doing, some of them were doing other parts with video. Yeah, I mean, it was heavy. There were a few times where I had to walk away and just kind of clear my brain a bit and amp myself back up again for the next one, because, you know, you're dealing with the same thing over and over, hearing these very sad stories of metastatic breast cancer. And a year before that, actually, my father-in-law had passed away from lung cancer. So I was still very fresh and raw. As emotional as it was for me to, one, lose my father-in-law, an amazing person who changed my life in the most amazing way, to cancer, and then being hired to create portraits of cancer patients. It just felt right to me. It felt like a great way to cope and to mourn at the same time, because I was able to have these conversations and bring out a little bit of my experience with it as well, and just bring out that comfort, you know? It was heavy, but I'm super, super proud of that work, because it's the realest, it's probably the most real emotion that you can get, I think.
I mean, hats off to you. It's you know, having something that emotional has got to be hard to deal with. One, for you being the listener of the conversation, to have to get these shots of sadness and hope and, you know, depression, to even begin to take somebody through a journey they've already been through and come out the other side to relive that is tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy at all for these patients. One, just to talk about what they're dealing with, you know, that's really big all on its own. But obviously everyone signed contracts everyone understood exactly what was going on and why they were there, and everyone had to agree to it. But there was still some walls to break down. I photographed one older patient whose upbringing was very strict, and like, I guess she wasn't emoting a lot during her life, but she still wanted to be a part of this. So she was probably the toughest of the 9. But my favorite shot was when she completely let her guard down and she took her wig off and just looked straight in the camera. And, you know, she's been through all these chemo treatments and whatnot. So her hair was very, very thin. And she just, you know, she looked sick, and, you know, because she was. And in the conversation, we learned that she probably wasn't going to be around for very much longer either. So she takes her wig off and she just looks at camera, and that is, I wish I could show it. I wish I could put it up on my website, because it's so strong and so emotional, and there's a lot happening with it. But also for these people to be in this type of a setting, in this portrait shoot, you know, there's a lot going on. You know, even though we created this little intimate room with V-flats to separate ourselves, we still had multiple lights going. They're flashing all the time, and all that. So there was a lot of things to break through on that shoot.
Yeah, holy crap. Heavy that one, man. It's I take my hat off to you for emotionally handling that situation and shoot, because of what it was. But it's tough. It's tough. Okay, moving on to the next one. Let's look at the term remote portraits.
Sure.
Now, to most people listening, this could mean a couple of things. It could either mean something like, you know, portrait shot using remote control, or even a remote location. But can you tell us what your project Remote Portraits was about?
Yeah. So when the shutdown happened over here, I was going through a very tough time mentally in what's next. Like, how long is this pandemic, this COVID shutdown going to last? Is my photography business going to be affected? You know, all the questions that I'm sure plenty of us were dealing with.
Oh, yeah.
So the official shutdown was 2015 or somewhere around there, mid-March. For about a month, I'm freaking out and I'm losing my mind. And then in April, mid to late April, I decided to try to create portraits the only way I could, and that was remotely using iPhones and iPads, using FaceTime.
Right.
So,
interesting.
yeah, you want to talk about a challenge? Holy shit! So there was a very, very steep learning curve in this process where I started off just getting on FaceTime phone calls and taking screenshots. You know, if you're having an iPhone, you got that little white button that'll take a screenshot.
Yeah.
And I was doing it that way. I did maybe 2 or 3 remote portrait sessions that way, and the quality was absolute garbage. They looked terrible, pixelated, because, you know, you're dealing with different phones with different lenses and processors in them. But then you also got the fight against the Wi-Fi connection. So if you've been on a FaceTime call, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So then I eventually started trying out a different process where, let's say I'm shooting a portrait of you and you're over there and there's somebody with you. So we would get on the FaceTime call and I would have you hand the phone off to somebody else, and they would then use I guess it would be the rear lenses, where your palm would be on the phone, those 3 or 2 or 1 lens on your phone. So I can see exactly how those lenses are seeing everything. So I'm now directing you and the person holding the phone to compose the shot, find the right lighting and all that. Once that's figured out, I have the person holding the phone switch over to the camera app, because now I can get the best image quality. Right, instead of going through FaceTime, I'm now using the camera app. I'm still directing both sides, but I can't see what they see. But I've got in my mind what's happening, because I've studied them enough I've studied the subject enough through the conversation and guiding them. And, you know, we had a conversation beforehand, and just to get as much information as I can with these people before my screen goes blank. So now I'm telling them what I want and what the picture needs to look like and all that. The person on the phone is just tapping the button. Some people took about 500 photos in like 10 minutes, which is ridiculous. But
machine gun effect.
Exactly. But, you know, but so even though I'm not technically taking the photograph, and people will argue that the person who took the photo, who pressed the button, they own the copyright to it, which essentially is true. I'm still directing and composing, and I'm going through the edit and all that. So when the shoot is done, all the photos that were taken, like every single one, and I only have so much control over this now, because they can send me what they want. They can essentially edit it, but I beg them, not really beg, but I ask very strongly and politely to send me every single photo, because I might see something that they don't. So all those photos get sent to me via email in the highest resolution possible. And I go through the edit, meaning selecting the photo or photos from each shoot. I color grade. I do a little bit of retouching, because, you know, there's only so much retouching you can do, depending on what phone is being used or what iPad is being used. And that's the process that I went through.
And how many of these are in this project? How many did you do?
Oh God, I think I did it about 30 or 40.
30 or 40 people.
Maybe more. At least 30.
Yeah.
And people all over the
either
world.
way, 30 people plus, and if they're shooting anything from 100 to 500 shots a person, that's a lot of images to go through.
Yeah, and I mean, not everybody was doing that much. Thank God. Thank God.
Happy trigger finger.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not the only way to do it too. If somebody was by themselves and they didn't have if they didn't feel comfortable having somebody come in because, we're dealing with COVID and all that.
Yeah.
Or they just live by themselves, or whatever the reason, they're by themselves. They would still go through the same process that I just described, but they would have to position the phone in a way that they can still hit the shutter with the timer going, get back into position, and kind of act out a moment. There's one on the website of Deanna Director, and that's her name, Deanna Director. And she was in this amazing Dumb and Dumber, like the movie, the Dumb and Dumber blue tux that Jim Carrey wore. She wore this dress that was inspired by that because she went to the Dumb and Dumber 2 opening. And so there's an amazing portrait of her like fighting a champagne bottle or a wine bottle in her kitchen in this dress. So she's like all dressed.
Oh,
with nowhere to
I
go.
remember the shot now.
And,
I remember the shot.
And that was all through this process I just described with using the timer. Nowadays, people have been using different apps where you can, I think it's called Team Viewer. I think that's the name of the app, where you can basically like remotely go into the other person's phone and see what they see, and you can control the shutter button. So you have a little bit more control now. That's if you have to go that route. And then there's, you can go through Capture One now and do a remote connection. And there's all sorts of much easier ways that I wish I had figured out a long time ago.
Well, you know now for the next time if you're ever going to do it again.
And I mean, I was hired for 2 commercial projects shooting remote portraits.
Really?
Yeah. One for a local university and another for some other client. I forget what it was. I apologize if the client is listening. I doubt it. But and it was all shot that way that I just described, with hopefully there's somebody there and shooting 1,000 freaking photos for me to go through. And
the good thing is our listeners can go and see these on your website, can't they? So
they're under the...
Is that just under remote portraits?
Yeah, they're in the personal projects section, and I believe it's the first link. Remote portraits.
Okay, but folks, go to Rick's website and have a look at those, because unless you heard that story, that they are shot, how they've been shot with phones and connections, I think some of those shots, when you look at them on a website, you wouldn't know that.
Oh, I appreciate
they look that nice. You wouldn't know they're taken that way whatsoever. So I think some of those look awesome, and capturing, like we were saying earlier, moments. You've definitely got that there. And I remember the shot with the champagne bottle, and it's like,
and what was really interesting for me with that project was it's completely influenced how I've been working since then with a camera in hand. In that I've loosened up a lot as far as lighting and moving around with a camera, and not being so perfect. Trying not to be such a strong perfectionist, and worrying that every shot is tack sharp or anything like that. If it's a great shot, it's a great shot.
Which we're guilty of in the digital world, aren't we? Because digital is always, it's just so much sharper, isn't it?
Yeah.
Almost too sharp sometimes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, a lot of us are taught that it has to be tack sharp. Why? Why doesn't?
Yeah. Yeah, not everything does.
No.
Now moving on to another one of yours, and one that has, a very close personal connection to you as well, and that is your Patriot Guard Riders.
Yeah.
Firstly, can you explain what they are, what Guard Riders are, Patriot Guard Riders are, and then tell us about the project and how that started?
Sure. Yeah, the Patriot Guard Riders are a U.S. National organization who welcome home our soldiers, as well as do military memorial and funeral escorts, in that they're escorting the hearse and the full funeral line to the cemetery or whatever for our military, whether they're active or not. They're absolutely incredible. I love this group of people. I first became aware of who the Patriot Guard are back in 2009, I believe it was, my cousin, Sergeant Ryan Dickinson, was deployed in Iraq for about 14 months, I believe.
Wow.
And when he came home, he was deployed in Iraq as a bomb detonation engineer. So he was blowing up roadside bombs.
Okay.
And he comes home to Long Island MacArthur Airport, small airport on Long Island. I swear there had to be at least 60 to 80 Patriot Guard riders in the airport who set up two lines, like basically like a tunnel of the Patriot Guard to walk through, and they're all holding up American flags. And it was the most beautiful scene that I've seen for a welcome home, as well on top of the 100-something people that were there from friends and family, and then all the other people that were just bystanders in the airport who see this big event happening. And so Ryan like turns the corner from the terminal and he sees this giant celebration, all the American flags. And it was beautiful. The smile on his face was amazing.
Yeah. Nice.
Now, fast forward a few years, Ryan was living at Fort Hood, which is in Texas. He was living at Fort Hood, but I don't believe he was not active. I know that much. He was at a Labor Day barbecue at his house, and regular party with him and his friends who were also in the military and whatnot.
As you do.
And lots of drinking, lots of having fun. Unfortunately, a fight broke out with Ryan and another soldier, and that other guy was kicked out. He was kicked out of the party. He later came back to the party, was confronted by Ryan in the front yard in the driveway, and was shot and killed by this man.
Oh, shit.
And that guy is obviously in jail now and hopefully rotting. Yeah. But yeah, he took Ryan from us. So
Jesus, man, so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, so the Patriot Guard were called on again. Ryan's body was flown back up to New York, and the Patriot Guard basically they welcomed his casket at the airport. They escorted it to the funeral home, and it's a really I didn't see that part just because there was a lot of other things that I was having to handle at that time.
Sure.
But they were at the wake. There was there was 2 entranceways into this funeral home, and there were 6 of them, 6 of these Patriot Guard riders standing at each entrance, and they saluted every single person that walked into that funeral home. Then day of the funeral, there had to be at least another 60 of them, and they're all on motorcycles. The majority are on motorcycles, which is just that much more impactful.
Yeah, sure.
And there's some people who are in cars. They're called cage riders, but the majority are on motorcycles, and they're just stopping traffic and making sure that you get from point A to point B, no problem, no stopping, no distraction, no nothing. And we were at Calverton Cemetery, which is on the east end of Long Island. It's a military cemetery here, and that's where Ryan was buried. And I very clearly remember the funeral, and Taps is playing on the bugle, a bugle player in the far distance, and you just hear that da, da, da. And obviously I'm bawling my eyes out. I'm just a blubbering mess. But I took a second to look up and look around us, and the Patriot Guard riders set up this giant circle around us as if they were protecting us. And they're all holding their flags up in the air. The wind's blowing. It's bright, beautiful sky with few clouds, and just the bugle. And oh God, it's a scene I'll never ever forget. And that's where I realized how important this group is to everybody, really, but to that type of an event of losing someone or welcoming a soldier home. None of them knew who Ryan was. No one had any kind of interaction with him ever, other than the welcome home. And
Gotcha.
And I mean, there's so many different Patriot Guard riders that a lot of the ones who were at the welcome home weren't at the funeral, or vice versa.
Okay.
And but I realized what they were all about is showing respect and honoring our military, and that really hit me hard. So after about 6 months, I decided to reach out to the Patriot Guard and see if they would be interested in a project where I would like to basically say thank you. The best way that I know how is creating beautiful portraits. And, there was a lot of convincing that was involved because they're not doing this for recognition. They're not doing it for exposure. They're doing it to honor and respect. So there was a lot of, like I said, there was a lot of convincing involved. I linked up with this man, L.W. Murphy, and L.W. is actually a retired, I believe he was in the Army, I believe, and he was a war photographer.
Oh,
so
wow.
He had some pretty cool stories. That we shared over a lot of Jack Daniels.
One of my favorites.
And he could see like how serious I was and how passionate I was about this project. So he introduced me to the higher ups. I went to like a motorcycle club house, what do you want to call it? And I spoke to a house full of bikers and some Patriot Guard riders just to make my case, make my point, and prove to them how serious I was about this. And I would say about probably 8 to 10 months after Ryan's funeral, we had 2 photo shoots scheduled, 2 different days. And I had about 50 to 60 Patriot Guard riders come into the studio, and along with personal items or anything that kind of showed who they are and why they are a Patriot Guard rider.
Get you, yeah.
And
holy crap.
It's some of my favorite work, And I was very lucky in that work, it brought out a lot of exposure, and that was the whole mission in this project, was to bring exposure to who the Patriot Guard riders are. I won a PDN Photo Annual Award. I had a gallery exhibition, and I created a book with it, which I don't really sell. It's more for meetings and whatnot.
Okay.
But I'm just so proud of that work. And
I bet.
Yeah,
Jesus, man. Yeah, what a project, what an impact, and what an amazing bunch of people and what they're doing just to show some respect to those that deserve it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, with those images, I noticed that a lot of them are shot in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular reason for that?
Yeah, it was really more to for that timeless type of feel, that timeless, iconic look and style to it. I didn't want there to be distractions in any color or contrast. Well, maybe contrast, but not so much in the color.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, that's why I chose to make it black and white.
Nice, yeah, and they look stunning because you got males and females of different age groups in there. I think their characters come through a lot stronger in black and white. Mm-hmm. I feel, which shows in those images. But they're awesome. So I urge people to go over and look at that project as well, and show a little bit of respect for that, because that is absolutely awesome.
Thank you so much.
Okay, just moving over to closing up on the show anyway. Why is it important to shoot personal projects? What opportunities do you think that can open for people?
So for me, it's really helped. My personal projects in the beginning of my career really helped define my style, my approach, and my process. Figuring out what worked best for me, what didn't. And it was very educational in the beginning. Now it's much more about refinement of my style, experimenting more to, like for instance, I'm working on a project that's coming up soon where I'm going to be trying to focus on groups, large groups, and multiple people in one shot is what I mean. And, because I just don't have enough of that in my portfolio, I feel. So that's why that's a personal project.
Okay.
But then you got the Patriot Guard riders or remote portraits or para-athletes or whatever you see on my site. It's a passion. It's something that I'm very passionate about and want to pursue.
And you're always pushing and challenging yourself,
always.
With something new, because our styles do change as time goes on, don't
Absolutely.
they? We do shift and transition a little bit. No, I think that's a good answer for that, of, why it's important to shoot it. And obviously, like you've said before, you were picked up for a commercial campaign based on one of your personal projects.
Yes.
And we hear that a lot. That's a lot of information. And we try and get that across to people that may not be in the commercial world yet, but want to be, that, your personal work can help. I'm not saying it will, but it can help you net some, prospective commercial work for them.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, Rick. So, and bringing us to a good close of the show. But before we go, any top tips you can give our listeners to help them shoot better portraits?
Keep working. Keep hustling. Don't give up. It may get hard. It may get stressful, but always push. If you're really serious about this work in portraiture, keep pushing.
Yeah, that's the best advice ever. Just don't ever give up. Okay, Rick, that's the main questions over. You'll be glad to hear, and very deep in part 2 there, and very emotional work, pieces of work as well, with a lot of depth and meaning behind them. So, we thank you for that 100%. Now, before we put a segment close on this show, here's the part of the show where we just personally ask you to recommend 2 creatives from either the photographic or the video world to come onto Podlemania as a guest for the show.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody spring to mind?
Yeah. I would like to connect you, hopefully, with my digital tech, Richie Myers, who the social media world probably knows as Digi Richie. He's okay. Incredibly knowledgeable digital tech. He's also a Tether Tools ambassador, I believe.
Okay.
And super knowledgeable. I think to get a different perspective, especially from crew, I think that'd be really valuable to hear. And then I've got a few assistants that I think that would be really interesting to talk to. I would have to really think about who the name would be.
Yeah, you don't have to be specific on the name there. But
yeah,
I think those 2 people will be awesome.
Yeah, I think to talk to a digital tech and a first assistant would be really great for your listeners to hear more about and their experience on set and who they are, why they do it, and all that.
What they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. And remember, we ask you to get in touch with them and do a sort of an e-intro so that we don't get arrested for harassment on that show. Okay, Rick, that's awesome. Now, before we go, can you just let our audience know where they can find you?
Absolutely.
Where are you on the...
Yeah, you can find my work at rickwenner.com, RickWenner. On Instagram, at Rick Wenner. And those are the 2 best places to find me.
You got a LinkedIn as well.
I have a LinkedIn. Yeah, just Rick Wenner. I don't know what the link is, but probably Rick Wenner photo or something like that.
There's a pattern there somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
Your name. No, that's awesome. And everybody that's listening, I'd just like to thank you for listening to this show. And remember, if you'd like to help support us to produce and record even more great interviews with some of the world's greatest creative talents, your support and donations are very much appreciated. And for those that don't know, that may have tuned in the second part, remember you can find our donate button on our website, podlemania.com/donate. And if you like this episode and you don't want to miss out on new episodes, then please make sure you subscribe to us on your chosen podcast player. Remember, there's over 36 of them that we're on. You can also subscribe over at podlemania.com/subscribe. And remember our main ones, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes Store, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music now as well, and podlemania.com. Please don't forget to give us a like and forget to share. And any comments you want to leave us on Apple Podcasts, which is our main one, would be very, very helpful. But apart from that, folks, I'd just like to thank Rick for joining us today and giving us a very deep and insightful look into his world and his work. Rick, thank you for coming on the show. It's been absolutely awesome. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you, my friend. And to everybody listening, we will catch you in the next episode. Bye for now.